Hey, what's up? How's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be starting on one of my favorite videos to make, and that is going to be a video where I read your horror recommendations. In the month of September, I think I asked on my YouTube community tab, I asked you guys for some horror recommendations, and like usual, y'all really came through. There were so many books that I had heard of that I've been interested in reading, and then there were so many books that I've never heard of that I thought sounded really cool. And so, like tradition, every single year in October for the last couple of years now, I've made a video like this of reading your horror recommendations. So if you've missed any of the previous years and you really like this kind of video, I can have the other ones linked down below. But I always have such a fun time reading your horror recommendations because I never really know what I'm getting myself into, and usually I can get surprised and find some new favorites because of you, and that makes my heart happy. But before we do jump into today's video, I just wanted to take a second to thank today's video sponsor, which is Factor. Because Factor makes meeting your nutrition goals easier than ever by delivering fresh, never frozen, dietitian approved meals right to your door. They have a team of gourmet chefs that make every single meal, and they only use ingredients with integrity so that you can be feeling your best all day long. For me, I think the best thing about Factor is that if you don't have a lot of time to cook but you want to be eating well, I think that Factor is the perfect solution, because with Factor you can save so much time. You can skip that extra trip to the grocery store, you can skip all the prep that it takes to make dinner, and you can skip the cleanup as well while still having a really good nutritious dinner. Their never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes. All you have to do is heat it up and enjoy, and then get back to crushing your goals. I love that with Factor there's so many different options because they have 35 plus weekly food options to choose from, so you're never going to be like eating the same thing all of the time. And they promote a healthy lifestyle and they can meet your meal preferences, and the fact that they're ready to eat in just 2 minutes just absolutely blows my mind. If you're also the kind of person that just finds yourself so busy during lunchtime, they do have another option called Lunch to Go, and they offer really wholesome meals like grain bowls and salad toppers that don't even require the microwave. They are just meals you can have on the go, and you don't even need to spend the time microwaving either. But I'm a really big fan of Factor because it saves me so much time during my day, and I really love their chicken meals. Any meal of theirs that I've tried with chicken always ends up being one of my top faves. The exciting news is that Factor is now owned by HelloFresh, so with such a wide variety of meal plans to choose from, there really is something for everyone. I really do love switching between both brands, and now you can as well at a discount with me. So you can head to factor75.com, or you can click the link below and use my code gabbyreads50 to get 50% off your first box with Factor. Isn't that an amazing deal? You go to factor75.com, you use my code gabbyreads50 to get 50% off your first box with Factor. That is such a great deal. Thank you so much to Factor for sponsoring today's video, and now let's get to the books. Alright, so you might be wondering which books I'm planning to read for this video. I ended up choosing 5 books from that community tab. So the first book that I'm going to be reading for this video that got recommended the most amount of times is The September House, which I was really surprised that this got recommended so many times because this is a new release book. Like, I'm pretty sure this one just came out in the month of September, but this book got recommended 9 freaking times. Like, 9 times it was mentioned in 9 different posts. A lot of people said they thought I would really like this book, that it's like a haunted house horror story that has a little bit of humor to it, and it's like different than other horror books. And so I was really curious. I wanted to give this one a shot. I did end up getting the audiobook for this one from my library, so that's the way I'm going to be reading it for this video. The second book I'm going to be reading for this video that also had a lot of responses is going to be Burn the Negative by Josh Winning. And this one, I had 5 different people recommend Burn the Negative, including one of my friends, Ashley from Ashley's Little Library. She kind of talked about how this book is the perfect kind of like tribute to old horror films. And I personally, before doing this video, I had never even heard of this book. I don't know how I missed it. I don't know how it wasn't on my radar, because this does sound like something that I would really enjoy. I do love horror books that either take place, you know, like on the set of a movie, or that are kind of like a tribute to old horror movies. I think that sounds so fun. The next book that I'm going to be reading for this video is this one called Tell Me I'm Worthless by Allison Rumfitt. And this is another one that I have personally never heard of before, but it got recommended by 3 different people. All of them were saying it's like, you know, one of their favorite books of the year. They were saying that this is a really great social commentary, which is something that I personally really love in horror books. Like, I love a good social commentary. And so I don't really know what this one's about. I've never heard of it before, but because it's so many people's favorite and because it got recommended so many times, I'm gonna read it for this video. Another book that I'm gonna be reading for this video is this novella called This Is Where We Talk Things Out which this is another one that I haven't really heard too much about. I know that my friend Marcy really enjoys this one, but for the most part, I haven't really heard too many people talking about this one, but this one got recommended 3 times as well. And one of the comments that really intrigued me in these recommendations is from Clancy when they said it's a novella about a queer woman who has a strained relationship with her mother and is trying to mend that relationship by spending a weekend at a winter cabin. And so just that alone, I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. Getting my hands on this book was a little bit difficult though, because for some reason I was looking everywhere for a paperback copy. I was looking at Barnes & Noble, I was looking at Amazon, all these different places, and I couldn't find a paperback version of this book. So I ended up going through the book publisher and I ended up getting the ebook. And then the 5th and final book that I'm going to be reading for this video is Camp Damascus by Chuck Tingle. And this is another horror book that I feel like I've been seeing this cover kind of like going around on the internet, but I really don't know much of anything about this book, and I haven't really heard too many people talking about this one either. This one was recommended by 2 different people, and the recommendations were super vague. It was just like, this is one of my favorite horror books of all time, or I really think you'll like it, but there was no further explanation. So I'm just kind of jumping into this knowing absolutely nothing. I guess that Chuck Tingle is actually kind of a popular horror author, but I've personally never read anything by this author so far. I also am kind of like nervous to read this because all I saw on the inside flap here is that it says, welcome to a God-fearing community with a heart of gold, and that it takes place in Montana. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I'm signing myself up for, because usually with religion in horror books, I'm not really a religious person, so it can be very like hit or miss for me. But yeah, these are the 5 horror books that I'm going to be reading for this video. I am so freaking excited. I really love doing videos of your horror recommendations. I just think they're genuinely so much fun. And so let me send you back to about a week ago when I started on the September House. Hello, how's it going? It is the 1st of October. It's finally October. I'm so excited about it. I put on my, my Woodsboro crew neck today because it just felt right. This morning I decided to, take a little drive down to Bellingham. I got one of my acai bowls from RECS, which was just fantastic. I've also just been sitting in this little park that's kind of like over by where the RECS is, and like there's nobody here. It's completely deserted and it's just kind of amazing. There are quite a bit of trees in this area that are like starting to turn orange and red, and it is just the fall vibe out here today. And anyways, I wanted to update you because I have started listening to the September House. I got 25% of the way through the audiobook just while I've been, driving down here, and I was just listening to the audiobook while I was eating my food. I had heard from so many people that this book was kind of more of a cozy horror book, and that it was more, I don't know, kind of like a goofy writing style, or kind of like similar to Grady Hendrix, and I would definitely agree with everything that I've heard about it. And in this story, the September House, we're just following this woman who lives in this house where like every September some like creepy things happen in the house, but it's written in a way that it's not very like scary at all. But she talks about how, like the walls bleed every September, and like she tried to like clean it up and do what she could, but then she realized that it'll just keep coming throughout the entire month, and then in October everything seems to get better and like everything stops. Random ass ghosts will just appear all the time in the month of September, and it's just something that she's gotten used to. Like she just talks about how she's like, yeah, and that's the girl that like died in the fire, and she's like in the fireplace, and like, she just talks about these ghosts as if like this is a completely normal thing that happens every September. Plot in this book, I guess, is that her husband has recently left. Like he decided decided he can no longer live in this house because every September, like, I don't know if it's because he's scared or freaked out or like what, but he just doesn't want to live in the house anymore. So the husband has recently left and like disappeared, I guess. And now the daughter is like calling her mom being like, where's dad? Like, what's going on with dad? And the daughter has like no idea about what's going on in the house during the month of September, but the daughter says she's gonna come out to the house and like stay at the house so they can figure out what happened to her dad and like where he could have gone. And so now the main protagonist, she's like, oh fuck, you know, because her daughter is gonna come and stay at the house, and it's still really early in the month of September, so she's like trying to figure out how she can hide all of the like creepy paranormal things that are happening in her house. And so that's kind of like the premise of it so far. I don't know, so far, you know, I'm only 25% of the way in, but so far, I don't know, I'm not loving it. I think it's very interesting, the like the writing style. It definitely does remind me of Grady Hendrix, but it's even more kind of like goofy or silly than I was expecting it to be, even though I had heard that it would be like this. It is reminding me a little bit of like How to Sell a Haunted House, at least in terms of like the writing style, I guess. Anyways, I am actually off to Barnes & Noble right now because I planned to pick up a copy of The September House at Barnes & Noble today. I had originally ordered the book off of Amazon, but then it wasn't until after I ordered that I realized it said the book wasn't going to get delivered until October 13th through the 16th. And I was like, what the heck? I need the book much sooner than that because I was able to get the audiobook from my library like today, October 1st. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I ended up canceling my order off of Amazon, and I was like, I'll just go to my local Barnes & Noble and pick up The September House today. So that is the plan for now. Just got out of Barnes & Noble, and I have good news and bad news. The bad news that I should tell you about first is the fact that I literally came here to get The September House, and I could not find this book anywhere. They were way too crowded in there right now for me to feel comfortable asking an employee like, where the fuck is this book? Because it said that it was in stock on their website the last time that I checked last night. But I was looking, I double checked in the thriller section, I double checked in the horror section, and I was double checking up front where they have like all the new releases. Couldn't find it, so I wasn't able to get The September House. But the good news is that I was able to pick up 2 other books. They had this table in there that had a buy one get one 50% off, and so I was like, oh shit, because I found a copy of Tell Me I'm Worthless, which is actually one of the recommendations that I'm going to be reading during this video. But I had this book on hold at my library, but I was kind of like worried because I wasn't sure if I was going to get it checked out to me in time while I was filming this video. So then I saw the paperback copy there and I was like, oh my gosh, perfect, I'll just pick it up while I'm there. So I was able to get this one, and then as part of the like buy one get one 50% off deal, I saw that they had The Outsider by Stephen King on that same table, and I was like, you know what, I haven't read The Outsider yet, and I think this would be really fun to do a Stephen King reading vlog dedicated to this book. I've pushed off reading this book for such a long time, and it was mostly because I thought that you had to read the Mr. Mercedes like trilogy of books before you read The Outsider, and then I realized I have read the first Mr. Mercedes, but I didn't even like it. Like, I DNF'd that series basically, so I decided why not pick up The Outsider and then maybe just continue with this one. I actually did watch The Outsider show when it was first airing, but this was like so many years ago. All I remember is that Jason Bateman's in the show. I don't really remember too much about it, but maybe it would be fun sometime in the future, like maybe in November, maybe I can do a dedicated reading vlog to reading The Outsider, so let me know if that's something you would be interested in seeing. But yeah, so I'm glad it wasn't a complete waste of a trip and that I was still able to get a few books. I also did end up getting one of the, it's the pumpkin cream foam iced chai latte drink. at Starbucks because I'm currently obsessed with this, and because my throat is still kind of giving me issues with my acid reflux, I can't really drink coffee right now. So at the very least, at least I can have this one. Like, I don't know why the chai doesn't bother my throat as much as coffee does, it seems. And also, some of the bad news is that I have still been listening to The September House. I'm about 50% of the way through the audiobook right now, and I don't know, I'm still not loving it. Which honestly, this is such a bummer because this one was so highly recommended from you all. But like, apparently the universe just doesn't want me to get a physical copy of this book, and maybe the universe just knows it's because I'm not enjoying this book. So the universe is like, don't spend money on a book that you're not gonna enjoy. The book has been really repetitive in the scenes of just like the daughter is at the house now, and it'll be like the mom trying to like hide things from her, and the mom will be like talking to the ghost, and then the daughter will be like, who are you talking to? And she'll be like, nobody. And it's just, I don't know, it's a little bit repetitive. I just don't really see the appeal with this one so far. Like, maybe it's just me because I can tell that a lot of people are like really loving this book, and that's why it was so highly recommended to me. But I just don't know if this kind of particular horror, I guess, is like my kind of thing. It definitely feels more on the cozy side. It feels more on the like silly kind of side of things, and I just don't know if it's for me. But anyways, I'm just gonna continue listening to this one on audio. I'm gonna try to finish this one up today, and I will come back at you with final thoughts when I have them. Okay, hi, it's been a couple of hours. I took a shower after dinner. We got Popeyes, which was really delicious. I put on my Squid Game shirt, but I wanted to let you know that I did end up finishing The September House. The last 30% of this book was probably my favorite of all of the book that I read, because the last 30% was just chaos. It was chaos, and I was literally like, my eyebrows were raised, like, in shock the entire time I was listening to that last 30%. I thought the story really picked up at the end, and I was just horrified at some of the things that I was listening to on this audiobook. I was like, what the fuck is going on? But then also, I just still feel a little bit like meh about the very end. Like maybe the last like 5% of the book, I was kind of like, okay. I'm probably gonna give it 3 stars, which kind of sucks, you know, because I know a lot of you really loved this one because this was the most recommended book for this video. So I don't want to like come on here and talk about the things that I didn't really like about it, but the story for me just felt very repetitive, you know, with the mother constantly like trying to cover up the paranormal things or try to like talk to the ghosts, and then the daughter just being like, what's going on? What are you doing? Who are you talking to? It was just so repetitive in that way. I really think this book could have actually been improved a lot if it had just been cut down by like maybe 100 pages or so, because there is that section in the middle where it just feels like things are happening over and over and over again, and it just, that part could have been trimmed down by a whole lot, and I think it would have improved the story a lot for me. I really do think though that if you enjoyed How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix, I do think that you would also love this one. I feel like these two just really go hand in hand for me, where like they were both kind of fun and kind of unique, kind of goofy horror books that I personally wasn't the biggest fan of. I think I gave both of these 3 stars. But I also do understand the appeal, and I understand why they might be popular and loved among other readers. They're just not exactly my thing. I think tonight I'm going to try and read the ebook that I have on my phone. It's about 10 o'clock at night right now, so I think I'm just gonna try to read this before bed. And then tomorrow morning I do have breakfast with my dad, which should be very exciting. Wow, look at that. Yeah. Country fried steak and eggs. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, good morning. What's up? I just got home from breakfast with my dad, which was really lovely. But anyways, I wanted to update you because last night I did end up reading This Is Where We Talk Things Out. In this story, we're following a protagonist who is like about 34 years old. She's currently engaged to this woman, and they're engaged to be married, but she's always had these issues with her mom, where like her mom has just never been very accepting of her, and so she's completely cut her mom out of her life. But now it seems like her mom is like wanting to reach out and wanting to like make things right again, and so this story is about how she's, you know, agreeing to her mom's wishes, and she's gonna be taking a trip, you know, with her mom to her mom's cabin. It's gonna be like out in the middle of nowhere, and they're gonna be trying to, you know, reconnect over a weekend where there's gonna be a lot of snow. And this story was really interesting. Something that I really liked about this story is how there were these little like illustrations sometimes throughout the book, like this one that you can see here, and then I also screenshotted like this one that you can see. I don't know, it was really cool and really unexpected because, you know, usually when reading an ebook, I'm not expecting cool little drawings throughout the book, so I thought that was a little bit of a unique unique thing that this author did that I really liked. I think it really improved the story for me. But gosh, this has to be one of the most toxic mother-daughter relationships that I've ever read in my freaking life, because this mom was driving me absolutely nuts. She's like one of those gaslighters who's just like, she'll say something that is like a totally rude and like awful thing to say to someone, and then she'll get mad at the daughter for like having a reaction to it. You know, it'll be something like, oh, you've gained a lot of weight since the last time that I saw you, or some kind of comment like that, and the daughter will be like, what the fuck? And the daughter will like react so viciously, and then the mom will just be like, God, why are you so mean to me? All I do is look out for you. I just want the best for you. Like, why are you why are you so mean? And like, oh my God, it was just so frustrating. Like, these two just go in circles, you know, like it's just a vicious cycle of like the mother saying awful things to her daughter, and the mom was just driving me nuts. Like, she's definitely one of the worst mothers that I've ever read about in a book. Oh my gosh. I do feel like this story for me was a little bit predictable with like where it was going, because there was a lot of hints, you know, given in the story about where we might be heading towards. And I feel like maybe it's because I've read so many horror books, or maybe it's because I've read so many things that I just had this gut feeling of like where we were going, and I ended up being right. But at the same time, it was still a really enjoyable reading experience for me. It was really creepy and like really well written. I appreciate that this book ended up being a novella, because I do think it's like the perfect length at like 120-ish pages or so. But I really do like this author's writing style in general. Like, I'd definitely be curious to read more from her in the future, and I'm glad I enjoyed it. I think I'm probably gonna end up giving this one like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I was originally thinking maybe I would give it a 4, but like after, you know, I've just finished it last night, and even this morning I was like, yeah, I mean, it was okay. So I feel like I'm gonna lower it probably to like a 3.5. Feels more accurate to how I feel about it. But anyways, I am going to go ahead and get started on editing this video that I just filmed, and I will update you once I've started the next book. Hello. I wanted to give an update because I have started on Camp Damascus. I'm wearing pink right now because I'm currently doing reading sprints with my friends Gavin and Katie, and today is actually Mean Girls Day. It's October 3rd, and so we decided what better way to celebrate Mean Girls Day than by wearing pink. When I brought up this book, Katie was like, oh, have you heard about that book? And I was like, I don't know anything about it. And Katie was like, oh yeah, that's the gay conversion camp book. And I was like, what are you talking about? And it turns out that this story, yeah, it involves the most effective gay conversion camp in the country. Which I'm like, wait, what? Because I had heard that this book was like religious, and so I kind of knew what I was signing myself up for with that, but I had no idea that it was going to involve that. So we're following this young girl, and you know, her parents are just very odd. They seem to like be pushing this boy on her, you know, they're like, oh, you don't want to date this guy Isaiah, like he's just so great, and you know, like implying that they like want her to get with this guy Isaiah, and she's kind of like, oh, like I don't really know. And it seems, I don't know, so far to me it kind of seems like she's been brainwashed, like she doesn't even know. And it's interesting because like she'll see this other girl that's like around, and she'll think like to herself, like, oh my God, she's just so pretty. Like, she's just so pretty. And like, she just has all these thoughts about this girl, and it's like, she doesn't even realize, I think, that she's like attracted to this girl. Like, I think we're following a character who's like already been brainwashed by this camp. And then like some weird things are happening. Like, she saw this woman like in the trees, and it was like super creepy. And this like was a woman in white, and she was like smiling, and it was like really creepy. And like, that was a scene that was like right in the first like 10 pages or so. And then there was also a really creepy scene that involved like bugs coming out of her mouth. Oh my God, it was so disgusting, and it was so descriptive, and I feel like this book is really interesting so far. I wanted to update because I just hit page 100, and I'm now like 6 chapters in, and it's going pretty quickly so far. I mean, this book is only about like 240 pages. Yeah, I don't know, I'm really enjoying the writing so far, and I am really liking the horror elements of the story. They just feel so graphic and like intense and like disgusting so far, so like I'm into it. good morning. I wanted to update you because I have just finished reading Camp Damascus. I was gonna try to finish this last night, but I was just so tired, and I want to say I got up to page maybe like around 170 last night, so I did make a pretty good dent. But then this morning when I woke up, I just decided to have kind of like a slow morning in bed. I stayed in bed a little bit longer than I typically do, and I was just listening to this on audio, and then while I was making my breakfast and eating my breakfast, I finished the book. And let me tell you, I don't think it was like the best decision I've ever made to like eat while I was reading some of the most like intense, gory scenes of this book. I was a little bit like disgusted by some of the things, but I did end up really enjoying this book, which makes me so happy. I do think there was a point towards the middle of the book, like around the part where I was at last night, where it started to get a little bit slower for me pacing wise. I feel like it's hard to talk about this book without jumping into spoilers and everything, but to keep it vague, I feel like the beginning of this book was a lot more intriguing to me because the horror was a lot more subtle, and it was just kind of like creepy, and I was trying to figure out what was going on. And then it's like once you figure out what's going on, it got a little bit less scary for me, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because the horror got a little bit more literal, if that makes any sense. Like, I know it probably doesn't make sense, but I think as you start to learn like what's actually going on, I felt a little bit less scared of like, you know, because when it was so subtle, it was just so creepy, and you were like, what the fuck is going on? I also think this book has a lot of like, you know, people spitting up bugs or like bugs coming out of people's mouths, and like, oh my god, that just really grossed me out and really freaked me out. I think the main thing though that I really love about this book is the message, because, you know, on the inside here it says, this is a horror debut about the demons the queer community faces in this country and the price of keeping secrets. And I think that's so accurate to say, you know, because this entire book is revolving around this Camp Damascus, which is this place where these crazy religious people are sending their kids, and it's like a gay conversion camp where they have like the most effective results in the country, and it's for very horrific reasons. But like their advertising is like, does the temptation of unnatural lust have a hold on you or someone you love? Has someone in your life found themselves in the unholy grip of same-sex attraction? Don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed, be proactive. And it's just, you know, absolutely horrific to know that people are putting their kids through this, you know, they're sending their kids to this fucking camp. And I think the scariest thing about this book is that these kind of places do exist. You know, like gay conversion camps do exist, like they're a thing, and that's really scary and really horrifying. I really like what this book has to say about religion and how it handles the whole situation, you know, because I think it points out some of the flaws in religion, where it'll say like people just kind of manipulate their views of the Bible into like whatever suits their narrative or to whatever suits what they believe in. And then they try to like use that into like pushing everyone into thinking, well, Jesus believes this or God believes this, but it's not actually what's the case. I don't know, I just personally thought that whole discussion was really interesting, and gosh, the final scene in this book, I nearly burst into tears. I didn't think I like cared that much about what was going on, and then at the end, like when those final lines, I was about to be emotional, which kind of shocked me, but I just think it ended on such a beautiful, touching note that just like knocked the breath out of me, you know? Like, it was really beautiful. So I can totally see why this book would be 5 stars for other people and why it would be like a top favorite. I think for me, it's probably gonna be around a 4 stars, just because I do love, you know, I love what this book stands for. I love the message that this book is sending. I love the atmosphere in this book. Like, I love the disgusting, like the bugs coming out of the mouth, and like there were so many visual horrific things that are gonna stick into my brain. I just think for me personally, I don't know if this is like exactly my kind of horror. Like once you start to realize like what's going on in this book, I was like, oh, like I became a little bit less interested in the plot itself. And I do think there's a little bit of a time in the middle of the book where I started to feel a little bit bored, but otherwise I really do understand the hype with this one. I think this one is fantastic, and I would highly recommend if this sounds at all interesting to you. So I'm so happy to have read it, to be honest, because I don't know if it didn't get recommended for this video, I don't know if I ever would have picked up this one myself. So thank you for the recommendation. I think this morning, I just finished making a quick breakfast. I think I might go and try to take Tank on a walk because Rachel's out with my mom this morning, and so I have the apartment to myself for the morning, but I was thinking about taking a walk. I don't know, it's looking a little bit like it might rain out there, so I might bring my jacket or my hood just in case, but I just kind of wanted to, you know, get out of the apartment, take a little walk in the morning because it's nice, and then maybe I'll just take Tank with me, you know, get him out of the apartment as well. And then I might end up going to the grocery store just because I had a few things that I wanted to get, and then maybe I'll also pick up a Starbucks while I'm there. I've really just been obsessed with that, it's like the chai latte with the pumpkin foam on top. That's the one that they're doing for fall. So I might go to the store and do all of those things, and while I'm getting ready and doing all of the things today, I might start on the next book that I want to read because I just got the audiobook downloaded for Tell Me I'm Worthless. I just got it checked out from my library, which was perfectly timed. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and get started on that and get the day started. Okay, hello, I am back from the grocery store. I did end up going to Starbucks and I got my little chai latte with the pumpkin foam on top. It is absolutely delicious. And I did want to update you because I have been listening to the audiobook for Tell Me I'm Worthless pretty much all morning. And I am now about 50% of the way through this audiobook, and I'm so sorry to let you know this, but I think that I have to DNF this book. You know, I did go into this book knowing absolutely nothing. Like, I didn't know a single thing. I didn't even read the premise. I just picked this book up because I thought the cover looked beautiful and it was recommended by y'all, and I was like, okay, let's give it a go. This makes me sad for a number of reasons. I mean, I didn't even realize when I picked this book up that the main character in this book is trans, and the author is also trans, and that this is like an own voices trans horror novel, which is so awesome to hear, and that's why I'm even more sad that I'm not loving this and that I'm deciding to DNF this, because of course I want to support queer authors, and especially in the horror community, but this just is not working for me. I mean, one of the things that I'm struggling through with this book is the writing style itself. Like, look at how freaking dense this is. Like, there are so many chapters in this book that are just blocks of text and just like this character just like dumping thoughts. It's like very, I don't know, the writing style just in general just is not working for me. This book has been depressing as hell. It is so depressing and so sad and so bleak. There is a content warning at the beginning of this book, which I do appreciate, and like, this author is not fucking around with these content warnings. Like, oh my gosh, this book has just been really difficult to read because I don't think I've read transphobia like this in a book maybe ever. It is brutal and it is awful to read about. There's also so many graphic like sexual assault scenes. There's so much racism, talks about self-harm, there's talks about suicide. Like, there is just a lot happening in this book, and it is all very dark and it is all very depressing. I kind of knew from the first chapter of this book that I was like, oh gosh, like, I just don't know if this is the kind of book that I want to be reading right now, because just the first chapter alone was just so sad and depressing, and you're just following this character as, you know, she's struggling with, like, at this point in her life, she's just like selling videos of herself online, like sexual videos, and there's a lot of sex going on at the beginning of this book. There's a lot of drugs, like she's intoxicated, she's using drugs to try to numb the pain of a situation that happened a couple years ago, and she's really tormented by this night that happened in this place that they call the house. That was like a couple years ago with her friend. And I guess, you know, the night that they spent at this place that they're calling the house, I guess that is where the like horror elements of the story really come in. But to be honest, I'm just not that invested and not that intrigued to find out, because I am just finding this book so difficult to read. I usually do talk about how I don't really love reading books that have a lot of sexual assault in them, just because it's something that is so difficult for me to read, and especially in the horror genre, because I feel like in the horror genre the authors can just really go rampant with like how descriptive the sexual assault can be, and it just really, it disturbs me in a way that I do not like. I just don't like reading sexual assault in my horror books. It's really difficult for me to read. Not only that, but like as I mentioned, the transphobia in this book from like some of the other characters, oh my god, it is so sad and like absolutely brutal. And like I appreciate obviously what this author's trying to do, you know, because they're trying to show how fucking horrific it can be to be trans and like what these people have to deal with on a daily basis living in this country. And it is really sad and really awful, but like I just can't read this right now. It's just putting me in such a weird mental space that I'm like, it's just sad and so depressing, and like this is not what I was thinking it was gonna be. I also just can't stand this writing style. It is just so dense and it's just kind of a lot, and I just don't think that this is the kind of horror book for me. I mean, I'm proud of myself for still getting through at least 50% of this so I could let you know my thoughts and how I'm feeling about it, but gosh, this is a tough one, and I would recommend if you are going to be reading it, then take those trigger warnings into consideration, because they are there for a reason and they are pretty intense. Like some of the most intense trigger warnings with those things of a book that I've ever read. Look at my breakfast, stunning, beautiful. Look at this beautiful Nespresso machine that Rachel just got. Oh, she worked. Going to work. Ooh. How exciting. Okay. Wow, that looks so profesh.
Just shake that bitch up because I already know that espresso's still hot. I already added cinnamon into the espresso, so I don't think I need it on top.
Moment of truth. Oh, oh my god. Is it great?
It's so good.
Good.
That's so far.
Yes! So happy for you. Rachel was also so kind at the grocery store today. She got this classic chai latte, which is apparently, this is what Starbucks uses to make their chai lattes. And so I guess you just use this and then pour in a little bit of like milk. Just put it over ice, I guess, essentially. And that's kind of how Starbucks makes their chai lattes. So maybe we should give this a whirl. I've got the ice in the cup. And this stuff, they said to put in like not that much, right?
Can't be scared. Can't be scared.
Okay, so we'll fill it up to about there, and then I think they said the rest should be milk. On milk.
Yeah, because it's pretty white, right? When you get yours?
Yes, it should be pretty white. Ooh. Cold foam to go on top, which is heavy whipping cream
And vanilla.
and vanilla.
You can put a little bit of milk in here too, but if you want.
Oh. Look beautiful. Oh.
You probably add more chai.
I'm sure it'll be fine. My first ever homemade chai. So cute. I mean, not that homemade, you know, I did use this, but still. Okay, shall we try it? Oh my god. What? This tastes just like the one at Starbucks. Explain this shit to me. This is science. Oh my god. Wow, that's delicious. Highly recommend this stuff.
That chai thing that I bought you was only $6.
This is $6?
Yeah. That's like less than a fucking chai latte.
I know, and you don't use that much of it. Hello, it's about 1:30 in the afternoon, and I have started on Burn the Negative. I just hit page 92, and so far it's been really interesting. Something that I'm really liking about this is the inclusion of like a lot of mixed media, which is something that I wasn't really expecting with this. It's really cool. There's a lot of like screenplays that are included, and different like news articles and diary entries and like different things like that. So in this story, we're following this woman named Laura, who is a journalist, like specifically a journalist that works for like movies, and she interviews like actors and directors and things like that, which is super cool. I'm loving that aspect of it. And basically in this story, there was this movie called The Guest House that came out in the year 1993, and it became this really like creepy cult classic kind of movie because there were 8 people that were working on the set of this movie, whether they were actors or producers or the director or anybody like that, and 8 people had died, like either during the filming of this movie or shortly after the filming of this movie. And the creepy thing was that these people had died in similar ways to deaths that were actually in the movie. And so it's interesting because Laura is actually an actor from the movie, and she was like the little girl in the movie, and she's like one of the only survivors from this movie. But she ended up, like, after all of this movie got all this controversy because of all these people dying, she ended up like changing her name and she moved to the UK. Like, she was trying to get away from it all. So now as an adult, she's a movie journalist, and she's gonna be going down to LA because she's gonna be covering this show that's basically like a reimagination of the movie The Guest House, and it's gonna be this show that's called It Feeds. But it's interesting because her role on the show was that she was playing this like little 7-year-old girl who would tell people how they were gonna die. And basically there was this creature called the Needle Man. I don't really understand, but the Needle Man is what ended up killing these people, I guess, and she was telling people how they were going to die. And then it's creepy because the way that those characters died in the movie were kind of similar to the way that the people died in real life. So like, say somebody died by like a spider bite in the movie, and then one of the actors in real life died by a spider bite like a year later. Like, somebody was like decapitated by the Needle Man, and then another year later somebody was like decapitated on like a ride at the fair or something. It's really cool because there is an actual page in the book where like you see this article that breaks down the way that the characters died in the movie and then the ones that happened in real life and like how similar they were. And so it's been really cool to be able to like learn about that. I feel like this definitely feels like it might have been inspired by like Poltergeist or something, because wasn't there a similar situation to either, like, I think it was either the Poltergeist movie or the Exorcist, I can't remember, but there's a lot of like weird history surrounding those movies where like some of the actors died, or like there were things going on set that were just really weird. And so it's been really fun to follow a kind of like cult horror movie like this, and to know that Laura was directly involved because she was the little girl in the movie and nobody knows that that's her identity. And so she's coming onto this, you know, set of this TV show in Los Angeles, and she's been interviewing like the director, and they even have a medium that's working on the set of the TV show because they believe that this show might be cursed. And right as soon as she gets to LA, she like witnesses this guy like jumping off the bridge or whatever, like right in front of her car. I don't fully understand like what happened there because they explained that she was the only one who saw it. So I'm like, okay, did she like imagine it? Because there were other people in the car with her, but she was the only one who saw this guy jump. But she keeps being like, oh my gosh, this confirms that like the curse is back and that creepy things are already happening to her. You know, like she thinks that she's like seeing someone. And even one of the actresses is saying like she keeps seeing things and like some of her stuff is going missing, and she's like seeing little notes written on her mirror and like creepy shit. I love any horror books like this that involve like a horror movie in this way, so I feel like this might have been the perfect recommendation for me. But yeah, I'm having a fun time with it. I'm just gonna continue reading. I think I might go downstairs to read because I want a snack. Hello, how's it going? It's a little bit later in the night now, but I did want to give you an update because I have still been reading Burn the Negative, and now I'm about 220 pages into this book. Gosh, I'm so torn with how I'm feeling about this because if you had asked me you know, in the first like 150 pages, I was having a great time at the beginning of this book, so much to the point where I was like, is this a 5-star read? Like, I was just having a blast. It was really feeling like it was something that is so up my alley. And now that I'm about 220 pages in, I don't know. I just feel like it's starting to lose me just a little bit. I don't know if it's because it's feeling like it's getting a little bit like repetitive, or it's feeling like it's a little bit long right now. But I also think it might have something to do with like the main character is getting a little bit frustrating to read about. I can't exactly pinpoint what my issue with this book is at the moment, but it's just not as engaging as it was like about 100 pages ago. But something that I really do like about it is like the creepy kind of like atmosphere in this book. I love the idea of like this needle man and like the creepiness with that situation. And I love how it seems like history is repeating itself with, you know, like people dying on the set of this movie in the past, and then people dying on the set of this TV show that's supposed to be like kind of like a reboot. I just think it's really interesting. I also do like the fact that we have a protagonist that we don't even know if we as readers can trust the protagonist, and she doesn't know if she can trust herself. She's kind of starting to question whether she's going insane, and I'm also like, maybe she's the curse, you know? Like, if she was one of the only survivors from like the first time that this happened, then wouldn't it make sense that like she's part of the reason why things are going on? Like, I don't know, it's definitely so interesting. It has really great vibes. I just think I'm at a point right now where I'm like starting to lose interest, and that makes me sad because I really do feel like this book has potential to be like a new favorite of mine with how much I've been loving it. But with that being said, I do have about like, I don't know, like 130 pages left or so, and I think I am gonna try to finish it tonight, because even though earlier I was like, you know what, I need to take a break from this, like I'm not really feeling it, and I was just gonna wait until tomorrow, but I just decided, you know, it's only 8 o'clock at night right now. I don't think it'll take me too long to finish up this book. Hi, I'm back with an update because I have finished Burn the Negative, and like that ending, there were some things that I liked about the ending, and then there were some things that I really didn't care for. I mean, for starters, I think there's like a plot twist. I don't even know if you can call it a plot twist, to be honest, but there was like a plot twist in the story that I just don't know if I really cared for it, to be honest. I feel like it's one of those things where I personally think fear of the unknown is usually scarier than like the fear of something. Like, I feel like once something has revealed itself and we can like see it, it's just not as scary anymore, and that's kind of how I felt about most of the ending of this book. It seems to me like the ending, you know, was supposed to be very like intense and very over the top, and I just felt like it was really cringy towards the end, and I don't know, it just felt like it was getting dragged out for so long, and like the action scenes were not very well done. Like, I don't know, they were just kind of cheesy for me. But I did like the very end of the book. Like, this book almost has like one of those epilogues where like there's something that happens a little bit later on, and I do like the way that this book ended. But this character, I don't know, she was starting to drive me nuts a little bit in like the second half of this book, and like, what is it with her obsession with Winona Ryder? Like, I mean, I kind of get it, but it's also like, what? Like, she literally has a tattoo that says WWWD, like what would Winona do? And she's just a little bit, I don't know, she's obsessed with Winona Ryder, which like, I guess that's pretty cool. I mean, I like Winona Ryder, but like, damn. I guess I'm just sad about it because the beginning of this book was so strong for me, and like the first half of this book is probably like 5 stars, and then the second half of this book for me is probably like 3 stars. So I feel like rating wise, it's kind of difficult for me to like navigate how I feel about this. It's probably somewhere between like a 3.5 to a 4 stars. I just need to sit on it a little bit more. Overall, I'm so glad that I finally got the chance to read this. I do think my favorite book that I read for this video was either Burn the Negative or Camp Damascus. I just really enjoyed these, and I can see myself recommending these two in the future. Thank you so much once again to everybody who sent in these recommendations, and even if I didn't get around to your recommendations, I would love to do a part 2 of this maybe sometime in the upcoming future if I have time, because there were so many amazing recommendations left on that post that I only had time to do these 5. 5. But if you have read any of these books that I read in this video, of course, I would love to know your thoughts on them if you can just leave a comment and let me know. And thank you so much for watching as always, and I will see you very soon with another video. Bye.